Hey guys, Ranger here, and welcome back to another episode reaction and afterthought or review. This is to the 10th episode of Initial D, second stage, which is the 8.6 Turbo. And I already know this, no doubt, is pertaining to the other 8.6, the Turbo one. So let's dive in and see the developments with that beginning in 3. Wait. Okay. Make sure it's still recording. Okay, good. Beginning in 3, 2, 1. The seal is broken. Ooh, interesting. Okay, this is a very interesting episode in more ways than one. It furthers the development of Itsuki and his relationship with this girl and shows a bit more of them. And it also shows that she's willing to actually stand up against her brother. And I have to admire that because sometimes a person might not have the guts to stand up against a family member. But I'm really glad that she does, and I think that's a very cool thing. However, I'm not going to say too much regarding her and Itsuki because someone did tell me, which I'm glad that they did, that don't get my hopes up on the two of them. So I'm not going to say too much regarding their development. I think it is cute. I think it is interesting how it's developing, but I don't want to say anything beyond that because I don't want to get my hopes up, and someone told me don't get my hopes up. So I don't want to focus on something that is just going to not be present later. So I'm not going to say much on that other than what it is right now. It's cute, and I think it is interesting and sweet. And I do think that right now she is showing some really good character. How much that she is wanting to more. She does respect Itsuki, and she does care about his feelings. She didn't want her brother to just kind of take advantage of him to get to Takumi. So I do think that is very cool about that with her, and I do think that it's cool, like I said, that she had the guts to stand up against him, and also can see the development there with her and her brother. He came to see her to see how she was doing because they were concerned, and she kind of wants to have some independence. She seems to want to have a little independence about her, and she told her brother that if he basically pretty much if she didn't say it directly like that, but pretty much if he didn't trust her, um, just basically go. She told him that if he either apologize or go, he'd apologize to her friend or go, and he went. And so I think it was interesting for that development and to show that between them. Her brother does have a temper, and he does become more obsessed whenever it comes to the concept of cars, of vehicles. So I do think that it's silly, personally, not in terms of story perspective. It has nothing to do with the writing, because this kind of situation has happened in real life before, not to me personally, but I know this has uh, transpired in real life before. Um, the entire scenario where he got upset, thought they were insulting him, instead of and he allowed his temper to take control instead of talking things out rationally and calmly. Instead, he resorts to getting more and more angry to the point his sister has to smack his face, literally. And instead of apologizing maturely, he gets in his car and drives off. And the whole scenario, uh, the whole uh, encounter with Takumi shortly after would have kind of resolved that situation if he had just talked calmly and civilly. All he would have really had to have done was just ask Takumi, "Why do you think this engine doesn't have power?" And then rode with him there. And it's silly because that entire conflict during that moment there by the lake, by the inner harbor or Riviera, wouldn't have had to have happened if he'd just been a bit more open-minded, not feel insulted, and be more calm. And so that's kind of on him because he did that. And like I said, I'm not complaining about the writing because realistically, this has happened in real life with, before. I know this has happened before, and so it's realistic in how it played out, but it still doesn't make it any less silly whenever it's played out in anime or any sort of cartoon or whatsoever, because in reality, talk things out calmly. Okay, it's interesting because Takumi's father Bunta did feel that Takumi should have figured it out about the engine by now. He originally wanted Takumi to be able to figure it out on his own and try to adapt his abilities around the complexity of the engine, but Takumi wasn't really progressing very much, or at least not to the speed that Bunta thought. This guy, Wataru, rode with Takumi. I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly, and then tells him that he needs a new tachometer, a new gauge setup, oil pressure, water pressure, and he needs all this. He needs a complete an instrument cluster setup that accommodates the engine, and that the engine is being that the reason why the engine doesn't have the kind of power that it should is because of it because it lacks that and the engine is basically being restricted on purpose. The engine was not allowed to reach its full potential. It's pretty much like having a dam, and instead of releasing 100% of the water, you're only releasing 10 or 20% of it. The other 80-90% of the water is dammed off. It can't go anywhere. It just stays there. And so this guy reveals to Takumi that the engine is basically cut off, and it needs basically this, which the next episode, the premonition for the next episode, the preview, is the seal is broken, which basically says that in the next episode, Takumi's going to find out what he needs for the engine or what he needs to do, and the engine is going to be able to release its full potential. So now we know the engine is capable of unleashing up to 10,000 RPM, and it's a racing engine, and the setup is absolutely beast, and is going to allow Takumi to pretty much throttle anything that comes his way. And we also see that this guy, Wataru, is very obsessed with the concept of winning, and there's a risk. He's very obsessed with that, and he feels that if he loses to Takumi, that it will shatter his entire world. So he's I'm not really sure what's going to happen with this, but definitely see in the next episode. So again, I really enjoyed this episode so far, and we got the explanation with the engine. So I am curious as to what's going to happen. Will it just be Takumi talks to Bunta in the next episode? I don't know. I know everybody else already knows, but I'm curious about what's going to happen. So looking forward to seeing what happens next. But thanks again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video that I do. Take care.